Hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. My name's Connor Chadwick.
I'm Daniel Patton.
And on today's podcast, I'll be talking to Thomas Aiden James and Dominic G. Martin about the Doctor Who Monsters and Villains volume that is still currently coming out as of us recording this. And then there'll be a nice little ToverTon exclusive of the Scarlet Lust volume that came out on TT Productions.
Very nice, sir. Very nice. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing
apologies for my absence from the podcast as of late.
Oh yes, but you've been busy. You've been very busy. If I remember correctly, last time you were in one was, because this is now podcast number 54, and the last time you were in was 51, which was only the second one of this new rebrand. And you were, I think, the first one that you missed, which was with Aiden. As in, like, Aiden was hosting in your place. You were in New York at that point, or in America.
Yes,
at
I
least.
was in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, and then a month after that, podcast number 53, which was hosted by myself and Connor J. Sumner, you were moving house.
Yes, and I've now moved house. I'm now settled into my new house. And as you know, sir, you know from yourself, mortgages are a fickle thing.
Oh God. Yeah.
We could probably do a whole podcast about the ins and outs of a mortgage, but as you know. Oh, you know.
Oh dear.
So
indeed.
My availability was a bit scattered. I thought I could have made the last podcast, but it was literally a time of I had to get out of the old house and move into a new house simultaneously and make sure that I can get the deposit back from the old place. It's the whole thing.
Oh yes.
But, all good now. I'm all good now. So it's good to be back on the podcast. Hopefully, I'll get through the next few podcasts without having to dig up another host.
Indeed. And before we continue, thank you very much to the Patreons, which are Anya Patton, Chelsea Lagan, and Matt Tyrell. Thank you very much to you three. And yeah, so sweet Daniel, I was going to ask you what you've been up to for the last few months, but I think it's been very clear you've been very, very busy.
Yeah, I've also been busy. I've been working away on the Fresh Timeline finale because I think because we've done so much filming for that this year. Yeah, there's still a lot more filming to do next year. So it's a never-consuming thing.
Oh yeah, it's been I can only say I've heard things about how it's been going, and it's a lot to organise, and I suppose it's also very emotional.
It is quite emotional. It's my last big fan film. It's the last time I'm playing Irish, and I've sort of got to a place now that this is the only time I get to really play Irish anymore. Yeah. So it's like every time I play, I'm like, this is my last thing. This is my last time doing this. My last time being able to do this as the character. And it's like you count down the last times at that point. So I didn't really expect it for me to be emotional. I thought I was like, I'll get it done and wouldn't think much of it. But now it's actually a bit emotional, yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's something that obviously I've had to consider with what I'm trying to do with the Cravat Doctor. My God, there's so many projects that we have to keep doing before he can go. I feel bad for him because something else that's happened whilst you've been away is that because we've recently got the final part of Torchwood Volume 3 finished. And I've never made it a secret that there was a Mastermind volume that couldn't come out until that was out.
So that's something that can come out.
Oh yeah, but that was written 3 years ago. That Mastermind volume, written 3 years ago, and also recorded 2 years ago. And that's the thing, we recorded multiple volumes back to back that time, so this isn't even the only volume. It's now just a case of we're kind of free again, but we're just trying to space things out. It's very stressful, and also as well as that, the scheduling is just a nightmare. Honestly, it's a big old nightmare, really. Oh yeah, but it's still fun. Audio making is still fun. I had a big resurgence recently of of productivity, because for we've talked about it, obviously, like beginning of last year is when I kind of had like a bit of a meltdown with things.
Yeah, you were mentioning. Yeah.
Things kind of entered a bit of a free flow, like a flow state, I think they call it. I got a lot of Torchwood edited. I got the I basically got a lot edited very quickly, to a point where, as of this morning, the final release of 2024 is now scheduled uploaded. Obviously, we've got podcasts and stuff, but no, the final release is now done. How magical!
Nice. Yes, and it's always trying to sort this time of year, wasn't it, for like getting the last bit of base done for the year?
Yeah, and then there's also, of course, you got to think ahead, and especially with it when it now it's the end of October, we're going into the last. I mean, it's weird to think that next year we're entering the middle of the decade. To put into context, the beginning of it was COVID.
That means this podcast is becoming 5 years old.
April 2025, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to believe 5 years doing this podcast.
Yeah, I'll turn 30.
Oh God!
And then and the podcast will turn 5. And also my monthly vlogs are stopping at the end of this year.
That's right, yes, because you mentioned that 2024 is your final year of doing your
that will have documented half of my life.
Oh, sir.
Monthly, it would have documented a third of my life, and then the remaining 5 years that would add up to create half. That is in like small minisodes, like 10 to 15 minute episodes showing the whole year. But in terms of monthly vlogging, I've just finished editing the October vlog, so the what you might call the last 3, a third of that is now done. So now I've only got 2 more.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out how I end that. But the thing
you'll
is,
have 2 vlogs left. The last series is over.
Yeah, I do wonder how much easier my life will become, or if I'll miss it. I probably will miss it for a while, and I'll get used to it. Because I'll have been monthly vlogging every month since January 2015. And there was a time when it actually got quite bad. I think it was in 2015 when it got bad, where I was still in like the kind of the height of it, the hyperfixation of making these vlogs. As a result, people didn't want to be around me.
I felt that same thing when I was doing my vlogs, because there's a time I was doing the monthly vlogs as well.
Yeah, I handed it over to you to do 2016. Then we ended up both doing, because I was meant to stop after 2015. It was meant to be a little thing to help me, because I'd entered a massive rut creatively. So I used the monthly vlogs as a way of me just talking to a camera, so I would have something to edit, at least one project to edit per month to get me back into the groove of things. And I just didn't want to stop. I handed it over to you, but that was meant to be me saying my final farewell, and I just didn't. and you've started and finished yours quicker than I have. I'm just more difficult to let go of things, I think. But yeah, like you did yours in 2016, 2017, didn't you?
I did 2016, and then I did up till I think August 2017, and I came back for like a November one, because 2017 became the most hectic year, because I just started university. I moved away. I didn't know anyone when I was at university really in the first couple of months, so I didn't want to be showing a camera down. People saying be in my things.
I remember that you did do some filming in the later months, but I think you combined it into one video. Because I remember a bit of footage that we've got on the underground. We were going to film on that. Do you remember that cold day of filming Waterside with the snow? Yeah. I remember you filmed that because me, you, and PMG were on the tube. Yeah,
I remember that there as well. Like, I think it's just like where I was meeting up people that I know who'd be comfortable being on camera with me. So I was like, oh, I could document being with friends, doing a cool project, and of course being with my beloved chatters.
Yeah, like I remember those clips as well, and I remember. I mean, you got to think as well. Those monthly vlogs document our first ever meeting.
That's true, you do.
Yeah,
I remember
August 2016, we filmed the same intro together, didn't we? Because we were both monthly vlogging at that point.
Yeah.
So we shared an intro where it films me. It's our POVs, isn't it? I wake up, it cuts to you in the car pulling the luggage towards and then pulling the luggage towards the plane and flying. Meanwhile, it's cutting in between with me as we drive to the airport to pick you up. I think.
Yeah, I think we actually shared that intro. I have to double check my one.
We did.
We actually shared that intro,
and then and we just film each other walk past one another. Go, wait, what? It's great.
This is a full nostalgia trip for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's something I was wondering about doing, about whether or not to do a supercut. But
the whole 10 years of doing the vlog.
Yeah, or a supercut per year. But I don't know. And yeah, it's a. Maybe I should just let go. No, yeah, it's
getting very sentimental, aren't we, right now on the podcast?
Yeah, but that's the thing is, a lot of stuff gets covered in that. It's half of my life. It's 15 years. Like you look at it and you go, oh, that's around 120 episodes, roughly, I think is what I did, because obviously 5 of those years were just 5 minisodes. So 10 years, 120 episodes, and roughly for that, I had to commit to that for a long time. And it's like you were saying just now as well. I remember when my first year of doing the vlogs, I was vlogging everything, and it made people uncomfortable because they were always being filmed.
Yeah.
The problem is that I end up leaning in the other direction and forgetting to film as a result. Which is...
I think... Yeah. It's so hard then, because like you want to document moments of your life, but at the same time you won't be wary of other people's privacy.
Yeah, because I was inspired by... to do monthly vlogs by 2 filmmakers who are on YouTube, called Sammy Paul and Hazel Hayes. Sammy Paul monthly vlogged his 2014, and then Hazel did 2015. But she made some good important points that I realised I think creatives end up doing, which was she'd go to take out the camera to film a social event she was at, and then she'd catch out the corner of her eye people looking at it and kind of rolling their eyes or looking tired, and then she'd have to kind of go, nope, sorry, and then put the camera away, because sometimes she sort of realised by monthly vlogging that it doesn't have, you sometimes living in the moment is just as good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The problem is that when you're monthly vlogging, you want something entertaining in it. You want something there. And that's something as well which I've thought about. Because I've never made these vlogs to entertain people because it's my life. I have now got these monthly vlogs of at least 10 years of monthly vlogs. But all the little episodes there spanning my 15 years of my life. I've always said since the beginning of it, one day I'd sit down with a future child, my child that is, obviously, because I always remember those feelings whenever my dad would show me childhood pictures of himself, and he would look, and obviously I know we're related, but I'd see so much of me in him, if you know what I mean. I'd see where parts of me had come from, and I was always like, I wonder what he was like. So like with these monthly vlogs, that gives me the ability to be able to show my future children that, to be able to show them footage and go, this is what I was like at 21. I know I'm annoying, aren't I? And all this sort of stuff. And I want to sort of, I do think in hindsight it would have been really interesting if I'd filmed something at the beginning of the monthly vlogs of a series of questions to answer. So that, like, I suppose it's like that Billie Eilish thing that they do on, is it on GQ they do it, or Vanity Fair? They would do a yearly interview with Billie Eilish, and they'd ask her the same questions, like, what's your follow account on Instagram? Who's your favourite artist? what do you think about this? What do you think about this thing? And her opinions, they would play her response from the previous year, and she would answer what she thinks now, and then get to comment on what she thought last year.
Yeah,
that would have been an interesting thing to do, but I feel like because I feel like because I would have been doing it, I would have been too hyper aware, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get you, sir. But saying it's like retrospectively, it's like you wish there was like a thread that you could have followed year by year, showing your growth. At the same time, it's nice to let it be a natural thing where you just sort of like you document your day-to-day life and you just let, you know, be as naturalist as possible.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm because also, as well as that, last weekend I went back to my hometown for my girlfriend's birthday.
Yeah.
And I walked past the house where it started. Like, it was my childhood home primarily, but I did also decide to walk down that street for the purpose of vlogging it. For the purpose of going, I'm 2 months or a month and a half away from this vlog ending forever. I haven't been back to this house since 2016. Like, it's that sort of thing. I wanted it to be documented, and you know, because I've noticed. Oh, actually, I'll ask you this. Actually, I know we're talking a lot about monthly vlogs at the moment, but you know, we will get to the podcast, I'm sure. But
yeah, that's fine.
Have you noticed when you look back on your monthly vlogs that there is a narrative that forms? Like, you don't know you're in it when you're vlogging, but by the end, if you look at yourself at the beginning of that year and then at the end of the year, you realize that you've gone on a character development journey.
A little bit.
I've noticed
2016 was the first year me and me and Anya had a relationship.
Yes.
2017 was the year I went to university, and like I stopped after that. But like, yeah, every year you go for some sort of journey.
Well, yeah, because ironically, 2015 was a big narrative kind of journey, because I'd gone from, well, I'm not going to go too much into it. It's quite a lot of personal stuff in that vlog, but I'd gone from basically having a massive life shift. It's weird. The first clip of the vlog starts off with me having a normal home life, and then it smash cuts basically within the first 30 seconds to my life being disassembled.
Yeah, I remember that time of life, man. And
I remember at the end of 2015, I had ended up spending Christmas by myself because my whole family had gone to Romania for Christmas, but there was a friend of mine who was going to be alone at Christmas, who I offered, hey, come over and stay at mine. So that's why I stayed there, to be there, so that we could be together at Christmas. And he never showed up.
All right.
So I was by myself at Christmas on Christmas Day, and but I also wasn't saddened. Like, it was disappointing, but I remember I always make a statement at the end of the December vlogs of where I am now, and I felt content. I had contentment in my heart for things, and that was where I noticed that, oh right, yeah, there are, like, at the beginning of them, it was weird, at the beginning of the year, I had a secure life. And then at the end of the year, I'm somewhere completely different. But yet, awful things have happened that year. And yet I'm content. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting one. And going through the years, you can see it happen. Like, you know, especially when I started my job, you can see.
Yeah, you started your job like late 2016, 2017.
Yeah, exactly. You can see all that stuff happen. But nonetheless, we will stop rambling about monthly vlogs now. We
You're all
should,
good, sir.
Yeah, in fairness, I should probably leave this for another podcast for when it's over and to talk about it.
Yeah,
I should probably do that.
To be fair, I can imagine this audio being nice when you're editing the last one. Like, what you were talking about, there was such sentiment about it.
Yeah.
I think You have some material here, sir.
Oh, good. That's good. But nonetheless...
But speaking yes? of materials...
Oh, right. Yes, indeed. Yes, we're talking about some Overton Audios material now.
Yes, indeed. And we have the Monsters and Villains volume, the Halloween specials. And you have your conversation of Thomas Aiden James and Dominic G. Martin about the volume.
Indeed. Let's go and listen to that.
Yes, sir.
Overton Audios presents.
I suppose, in your twisted way, it is a path. A path that I am moving on from.
Hyde is here to stay, no matter what you pretend.
Painting
is the other half of me. I will never age.
Someone is messing around with time mechanics.
Let the night of Alucard commence.
Invisible men wrapped in bandages. Is this how the story got started?
It was one of the possibilities.
You brought this upon us through your own selfish desires.
Who do you think you are? I am your superior.
No way.
You've waived your right to a beer. You want to know what Mr. Hyde did tonight, Dr. Jekyll? Then let's have a chat.
I thought you loved me.
Your beauty is what attracted me. Now it's all a lie.
Madam Vastra, lovely to see you again.
I see you've changed your face again.
I'm surprised it took that long for the portrait to decay.
How do you know so much?
The murderer isn't from this world. It was a vampire.
A what?
Blood-sucking vampire.
Oh, this is too good. You can't regenerate, can you, Doctor? Now, die, Doctor!
Doctor Who, Monsters and Villains. Coming the 5th of October 2024 at 12 p.m. And welcome back to the podcast, and I'm joined here by Thomas Aiden James.
Hello, Connor.
How are you?
I'm fine. I mean, today the weather's not been very nice, but I mean, to be honest, for the volume that we're going to be talking about, it kind of suits it. However, not really the episode I wrote for it. So, yeah, I kind of wish the weather was a little bit better, but it's kind of fitting for what we'll be talking about.
Yeah, indeed. It's a nice sort of Halloween volume we'll be talking about. So you wrote Footsteps in the Snow. You were given a brief by me for what kind of villains we were lining up a lot of different villains because I knew we were going to be again. I've mentioned this when I talked to Dom about this as well, but we obviously remastered did some remastering of the Irish Doctor Halloween episodes, which have Dracula, otherwise known as Alucard. And he's in both episodes 1 and 5. But I knew I wanted to have this Halloween volume have a nice mix of the old and the new in terms of their doctors.
Yeah.
And that's why, with Irish having a remastered story, I thought, well, I'll give Cravat one. And the next two, of course, were the two newly announced ones, Alacrity and Frontier, who've both had post-regen stories now. Obviously, we had one in the new year with the Alacrity Doctor, with Infinite Exordium, and then of course we've been working hard on the first volume as well, which is due out next. Actually, as of when this comes out,
it is. Yes,
it'll be the next thing to come out. Yeah. And then I think it's next. I think the trailer is due on the. What day is the trailer due? The trailer is due the next day, the 3rd of November. So yeah, we've been working on that, and of course with myself and Dom with Frontier, we just did the prologue in August, and that was his post-regen story. And so both doctors are set up. I talked to both Matt and Dom for a little bit about what they felt suited their doctors. Frontier is going to go down a bit of a darker path, so as a result, having kind of like the lighter side of him, like he has for himself, like the Doctor has, now having the sort of dark element, it made sense to have Jekyll and Hyde. But because of Alacrity and how we kind of want that Doctor to be, we want him to be very fresh, hopeful, and full of life. It made sense to me to have something a little bit more fantastical, if you know what I mean. Appear.
Yeah.
So having something like the Invisible Man, it means that we, it's something a little bit fantasy-esque, and I just think it's nice. When you can, otherwise, if you compare it to things like Dorian Gray was a nice match for Cravat, because Cravat is the oldest Doctor. Yet, doesn't look it, I'd like to think. And
of course.
But that's the same way as Dorian Gray. So when it came to me talking to you and saying, look, I'm hope that this episode's called Footsteps in the Snow, how do you want to write this? You were very much wanting to write something, and you asked about this, from what I remember. When I mentioned the Invisible Man to you, I said I wanted to try and keep the story as familiar as possible to the original. How did you start that process?
Well, I basically started sort of doing sort of a bit of research on the story, because I've read the story ages ago. I think probably through in education, but kind of going back through it again, I just thought there's got to be a version where because with the book and that, you've got obviously the written page there, but there has to be sort of a relatively sort of good version which you could basically sort of see the images for what I would be writing for the episode. So how I did that was I kind of searched up sort of versions of the story, and I came across I think it's the 1980 BBC serial version, which I think was done by Barry Lett, I think, which would have been sort of around about the time he did season 18. But I kind of searched it up and watched the whole thing, and then literally from watching it, I got a lot of the images, not only from the original story, but how Alacrity and Lorna were going to sort of be a part of it, basically, because I mean, in the way of how it was written after we wrote sort of the major volume of it. So by then, I'd written my episode of Alacrity, so I knew the character. I mean, I knew the characters already from obviously the conversations that we'd had since I joined the project last year. But it was in a case of after writing that episode that I did, and also doing some stuff to episode 5, sort of getting into the characters of Alacrity and Lorna, and how in this case, because the episode itself is set sort of after Infinite, but it's going to be set sort of in that time before we sort of get into volume 1. In that case, it was sort of slightly going back into how in a way it's kind of like I'm trying to think. I was gonna say kind of like Horrifying Rock, really, but not for Lorna mostly, but sort of putting this gothic tale into it, really, and just sort of using those characters to sort of footsteps in the snow, really.
Yeah, and I suppose even though it's not directly her first adventure in the TARDIS, it's the first time that they've had this full adventure together in another time period. So obviously, as it's mentioned in the episode, they're trying to find their way to the 45th century. That's part of the story to do with the Centurion and the Seeker from Infinite Exordium. And they decided to stop off here, have a little look around to explore. They've been hopping about a little bit with the navigation system, going up and down, left to right, anywhere really when it comes to time and space. But no, this is Lorna, basically her first what you might call her first proper adventure in the TARDIS. And it's always nice to see, because by the time we get to Volume 1, Episode 1, not to talk too much about that, but of
course,
obviously by this point she's not even seasoned, because for me that's only her second ever trip, what you might consider to be a full trip. They do make a joke that they had to try 5 or 10 times to get there. But
yeah, I do remember writing that. I also want to sort of like mention the fact of like you saying before about the 45th century and that. I do remember one of my favorite lines to write was about sort of when they land. Where basically the Lorna and the Doctor sort of talk about like, oh, how come this like old aesthetic is in the 45th century? And then I think I remember writing the line saying, maybe at some point, the sort of the universe decided to be a bit nostalgic and like produce a pub there. And I just thought that was actually sort of really kind of like it really felt like a good alacrity and sort of early Lorna moment really in that case, because like Doctor's sort of, you know, he's not being sort of outright saying that, oh, it probably is the 19th century or the 20th century, but it's more like
hopeful.
Hopeful, yeah. He's easing it in for her, basically.
Yeah, like his personality has been formed by the beginning started with the Prism 60th. Where he was very left unsure, very worried, nervous. And now as we see him into the second episode with him, he has got he's got some confidence about him, but he's still trying to find himself. It's not something that we like pay much attention to. We still want it to be a nice Halloween story, but it's still very much him in the early days of his life. In fact, I think it probably is only the second or third day, if I'm being completely honest.
Possibly, yes.
And yeah, he's still trying to find himself both in personality and I suppose in a little bit of costume wise, because we know that there are going to be some adaptations as we go. No, it's really interesting because when it came to casting for me, it was very, very interesting and not difficult, but just tricky, because we knew that with The Invisible Man, it's an audio anyway, so you can be sometimes forgiving with voices, but you knew that for The Invisible Man, the fact that he's invisible as well means that the voice has to be striking. Again, I say that like as if people can visually watch the audios, but you get my meaning. It has to be something where the voice is memorable because you've got none of the characters, and neither yourself have got any visuals of which to imagine what this person could have looked like. It was also something that I was wanting as well, which was to have these stories happen very similar to their story counterparts, but as if the original story is told as hearsay, which is why I felt, and of course I'm not sure if you've done this intentionally, but I felt with Footsteps in the Snow, it was really interesting that the story was kept more self-contained to the Doctor and the companion, and you rarely ever saw anyone from the town, because in the original story, of course, it's about how the people of the town react. The Invisible Man does something. Obviously, you can't see him, you can't have him in every scene, but it's the mystery of him, and it's about how the town react, and it ends up just like at that barn again. It's just that instead I like to think that we followed that the original story still happened, but we just didn't look at it from their perspective. We watched from the Doctor and Lorna's perspective, and their perspective was they did their own investigations. They went along and they found they went along, found the Constable Paul, who was a little bit paranoid, to say the least. And then who then later sadly was shot and killed by the Invisible Man. So it was one of those things where you see how the original story came to play and how the hearsay of look what this Invisible Man did to this police officer, and then you can see how when you watch the original or read the original, just imagining that the Doctor and Lorna are in the background. It's quite fun, really.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something that I've been very careful not to do too much of, which is to replicate the stories directly. Like with Dom's one, it's based on a book instead. It's based on the diary of Henry Jekyll. So so Jekyll and Hyde in terms of the Prism universe don't exist for long. But when they defeat him, he drops his book, and the Doctor leaves it in the snow, and it gets picked up one day, and then a few years after that, it gets adapted into a book. So it's just someone's writings and diary that get made into the book, rather than the event of Jekyll and Hyde itself. And then with Dorian Gray, it's a murder mystery. It's solving the murder of Dr. Alan Campbell, who took his own life because Dorian Gray made him cover up a murder. So it's all these little things that we've tried to make the genre as appealing as possible.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the very end of that story, we have Oscar Wilde, who was the author of the portrait or the picture of Dorian Gray. And he actually walked, because in a very recent First Doctor Adventures, Lost in Time 2, we had Oscar Wilde in that. So Oscar Wilde appears here looking for Basil Hallward, which was the painter, but he's not there, and Dorian is. So him and Dorian end up talking, and they talk about the idea of person being preserved just as much as paint is in its oils. And it was a nice, clever way of going that Dorian Gray actually got the book published as an autobiography.
Yeah.
So it was just a nice sort of that we've done little fun ways, I like to think, with that. And then with Alucard and Dracula, obviously it's a remaster of the Halloween specials for the Irish Doctor that came out in 2020. And in that one, Alucard has been using the name Dracula to spread myth and rumour, hence why the story itself never happened, but the person Alucard did exist and created Dracula. So it's all very good, very different. Very different tellings of the stories.
Yeah. And then I'd also say we have that connection already with the author of The Invisible Man, H.G. Wells, because of Time Lash.
Well, that's the thing. I know that because I went through and did a bit of a script edit. I know that we both wrote something in about H.G. Wells, about as they're leaving, Alacrity goes, "I'll call my old friend Herbert to come have a look at this."
Yep.
And then you can imagine from there, at least in this continuity, H.G. Wells went there, got told the story by the townsfolk, and then he wrote the book. Yeah. So again, it's all interesting how hearsay and rumour are supposed to create the famous works that we know today. I'm quite happy with how the Halloween volume as a whole has turned out. I'm really chuffed to see what's going on with Alacrity and Lorna. I've been really chuffed to see, especially with Matt, when you listen to how he is in the Prism 60th, it's still so good, but you can tell he's trying to find the character, and it's really good that we've been able to start a Doctor from the moment of regeneration, because then as Matt is finding the Doctor in him, so is the Doctor. So is the Alacrity Doctor. Yeah. So it's a really nice thing, because there were so many Prism Doctors we have that just start. That just start, and we never really get to see how they became this version. So it's not often we really get to see that with both Alacrity and Frontier, who are together in that sense. Alacrity turns into Frontier. We just haven't seen how yet. It's an interesting one, because those Doctors will arguably have a beginning, middle, and end. Cravat never had Cravat, for example, never regenerated from anyone.
No.
I suppose Irish Doctor does as well, but we don't know who he came from either, so we've never seen it. It's a difficult one, and obviously we'll see it with Elusive as well when Cravat goes. It's an interesting time. And it'll be well. It'll be fun. I suppose it's interesting as well, because the way we filmed all the Blonde Doctor stuff was a little bit out of order anyway. So even though we haven't told much of the Blonde Doctor's story yet, we haven't exactly, we've already shown him regenerate. We've seen what happened. We just saw him get flung out into Cardiff. So we've actually seen a proper Doctor change. And that's what's been interesting, is that Alacrity has origins as well. We saw what was happening with Blonde at the end there. We saw his final thoughts as he became Alacrity. We saw it in the Prism 60th as he then goes on to, find himself and then be told by his previous self very directly to not worry. And then for Alacrity to have a realization, that Blonde was much braver than he gave himself credit for, and that he was one of the best, and stuff like that. So it helped Alacrity heal those wounds, getting to talk to his previous self, and now it's about moving forward. So I'm really looking forward to what the future holds.
Of course, yes.
Of course, as I've said at the beginning, the Alacrity Volume 1 trailer is out on the 3rd of November. It will also be at the end of this podcast as well for the Coming Soon segment. So, even though it comes out literally the day after the podcast, it will be there.
Yeah.
It will be there. So,
and I'd say in a way, really, the Halloween special, it's not like, because, it's been like around about 10 months at this point since we've seen the last Alacrity. It is another chapter, heading into sort of Volume 1. So it's not like, this is like completely of a closed off like section of Alacrity. This is like, part of his, as you said, part of his like, stories. His origins is like his reconstruction from his Blonde days, really. So
yeah, exactly.
In that way, basically, in that way, it's really kind of like, it's not like a prologue, because I'd say Infinite was the prologue. I'd say this is chapter 1, and what's coming up will be like chapter 2 and onwards, really.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. So is there anything else you wanted to add as well about the Halloween?
I think the only thing I do want to add is the fact of obviously this being a Halloween special. Does this mean that in some case, although we've had a New Year special with Alacrity, does that mean that at some point he will get a Christmas special? Because Blonde's had a Christmas special at this point, and I think Cravat has, and Irish, and Young, and has Novan had his one part.
Well,
Young, technically,
it wasn't called a Christmas special. Volume 1, Episode 1 just came out at Christmas, so it was just it made sense. But I can see what you mean. I'm sure there'll be potentials for a Christmas special. Of course there will. This year's Christmas special isn't even Doctor Who. That's what's interesting. It's not Doctor Who at all. It's actually the return of Sherlock Holmes.
Which we've already had that lovely return in the end of Henry Woodman. So in that case, it's kind of like
that was kind of a little test run for me and Dan to see if we were still into it, because it just made sense because Henry Woodman is going from different stories and stuff, and then to have to basically do a different version of the last episode we did, which was called The Final Problem, which was obviously resulted in the fall that everyone knows that ends up killing supposedly Sherlock Holmes. We thought we'd do that story but put Henry Woodman in it and see what happened, and it was fun, and re-editing those scenes with Sherlock and John Watson examining bodies and stuff and talking and deducing. Me and Dan had a lot of fun, so we were like, we know. And Dan's actually, this script that will be coming out, he's been writing for 2 years.
Goodness.
I think he got it written much earlier this year. It's just I couldn't find a date for it, and then I just thought, well, Christmas, it makes the most sense. It'll have been 26 months since the last Sherlock Holmes release. It just sort of made sense, and it's going to be technically volume 4, episode 1, but we're just going to make them when we can, when we want. So yeah, but yes, thank you very much, Thomas, for talking to me about the Alacrity Halloween special, and of course the Halloween volume generally, and also the Alacrity plans, like the origins and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Indeed. All right then. Well, thank you very much. See you. Farewell.
Farewell.
I am here with Dominic G. Martin, aka the Frontier Doctor. Hello, Dom.
Hello. Pleasure to be here.
Indeed. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm still suffering with a cold, but you know what? We move. We survive. We drink Lemsip. I've given up hiding the brand, so as you can tell, it's just, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, this is true. And of course, this podcast is a special themed one. It's a Halloween podcast of all
Yes. Ooh, spooky.
And of course, we're talking about the new volume, Doctor Who Monsters and Villains. Now, with Monsters and Villains, it's the first Halloween volume that we've done.
Hooray!
We usually, for the last few years, we've been doing Halloween specials for the Irish Doctor. Dan had explicitly wanted to do Halloween-style episodes, where he's done a two-parter with Dracula that got a remaster in this volume, and then he's done one with, I think it was Zombies and Wolves, which are obviously two separate ones, but that was 2022. So another 2 years later, we're back, but this time we're getting a remaster of Dan's Irish Doctor stories from 2020 for the Halloween stuff. That is Alucard and Dracula, two-parter. But then, right in the middle, we've got 3 new stories. Episode 2, Footsteps in the Snow, with the Alacrity Doctor and Lorna Holt. This is their second ever adventure. And then we have, my brain, Hide, Seek. It's been a very long day for me. I don't know if you can tell.
It's fair.
Hides. My brain keeps trying to say hide and seek, but I'm like, no, it's Hides, Seek. And that was written by yourself, your good self, Dominic G. Martin, and that is also Frontier's second ever adventure. So Alacrity and Frontier are working hand in hand, parallel with one another at the moment. And then the last one is a Cravat story, a Cravat Halloween episode with the Paternoster Gang of all people.
Oh,
but of course, we're here to talk about the Frontier Halloween episode.
Indeed.
Which is the one that you have written. However, unlike Cynthia, I gave you a brief on.
Yes, you did. And that's fun to work towards.
Yeah, I aligned a key set of monsters and then just asked yourself and Matt which ones you'd want. And we discussed it, and even though there was a brief given, we did discuss which one would be best for Frontier. Because of the element that we talked about with Cynthia, where he has a lighter side, and then after Cynthia's death in the prologue, he ends up falling slowly into this darker path. He's not very happy. He's not a happy man in this episode. It is 18, didn't we? We discussed the year, didn't we? Wasn't it 1882?
Something in the something. It was basically. I know it's just before the book was published.
Yes, you're there.
It was a few years before.
Yeah, you're there in a bar having a couple of drinks, and you start talking to this nice barmaid called, I believe it's Alice. Isn't it Alice? It's Alison. My brain is.
Oh God!
I'm writing the cast list.
Fuck, I can't remember.
It's been a while. It is Alice.
Oh, good. Okay, rewind.
Yeah, we'll keep that in. That is some badly planned stuff that everyone can laugh at.
Yeah. Oh dear. You see, these little names, they leave your mind as soon as you're done with the script and you move on to a new one.
We're all working on so much, aren't we?
Yeah.
But then of course we have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, played by Mart Eonian. Yeah, that's it. Eonian, who has appeared in multiple productions with TT Productions 23. Namely, he was the showrunner of their audio alternate series called The Last of Us. Alternate Lines. That series, I realised I was about to say that he's the showrunner of The Last of Us, and I was like, hang on,
hang on a minute.
Yeah, I need to kind of brace myself for this. But no, that series is, in the first game, you get a choice about whether to go left or right in the, or that's a cutscene or something that you've got the choice, and in the game they choose to go right. That series is what if they chose to go left, basically. And it takes them on a whole new story, basically. And that was something he was making for TT, and he has also appeared doing other roles, but he's got a magnificent voice.
Yes, he does.
He did really well at the differentiation between Dr. Jekyll and Edward Hyde. You sometimes would think that they're two different people as well. Which is something that...
It's a very good vocal range.
Oh, definitely.
Extraordinarily good.
And, of course, the way that the story was done to mirror the book, but not quite. Because, obviously, the whole point of these stories is that they are myths and legends that end up being part of human legend. Or Earth legend. So that's why we chose to, for example, with the remaster of Dan's episodes, Dracula. Classic story.
Yes.
With Alacrity, it's the Invisible Man. With yourself, it's Jekyll and Hyde, and then it's Dorian Gray with Cravat. So we talked about what would be best, and we thought because of Frontier having a darker side, it would be really interesting to explore that darker element of another person and see how Frontier deals with it. And Frontier is ruthless. I think this here is the first step with Frontier.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a good ending for him in this one either.
No.
There's just this really sad moment. I feel for him so much when the twist of the episode is he's having this massive showdown in Jekyll's study and bringing down Hyde, destroying him, and then having to essentially affect the mind of Jekyll, winning through sacrifice. Something the Doctor doesn't like doing. And then it all snaps to the moment at the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
It was all in his heart. It was all in his mind. And it happened, within maybe, did we say, a few seconds or up to...
Yeah.
So a little bit longer, maybe. But he basically shuts him down. And then you turn to Alice, who's a brand new friend you've made, who, again... He has lovely conversations with. He's, again, a lot drier still because of recent events, which is
no romance, no hanky-panky,
no romance, but an understanding and a kind of chummy sort of element. And then at the very end, Alice runs away terrified of him.
Yeah,
and it's the fact that there's no real emotional reaction. He just mutters, "Oh, not again."
Is effectively he's just been so emotionally exhausted by the previous 72 hours that he goes for some solace, and that happens, and it's like, all right, that's how it's gonna be. He's genuinely just deep down he's heartbroken, but on the surface he can't be asked to show it. There's nothing there. He's just been so quickly exhausted.
How can you be feeling heartbroken when it's already broken?
Exactly. That's a nice way.
Yeah, he's already heartbroken from Xynthia. This is just something else to add to it. It's not a new thing to break. It's already broken. So, regarding the script, so we talked about the brief and decided on Jekyll and Hyde for Frontier. When it came to us discussing the episode being written, we talked about how much of the book are you allowed to take. For example, with the Alacrity story, it's almost very true to the book. To a point where the companion is going, hang on, this is the story. And then meanwhile with Cravat and Dorian Gray, it's a murder mystery that then reveals that all of those events happened without the Doctor's intervention or without anyone's intervention. They were always destined to happen. So with you didn't quite do it like that. You kind of lent into Hyde having more of a reputation on the streets.
Yeah.
Than anything else. Why did you decide to do it that way? And when you were sitting down thinking about it, what led you to that?
I wanted to create the inspiration for the book. I wanted to do something that would inspire the book, but because no one would actually know the truth of the events, it would never be a one-to-one direct translation. They couldn't do it. The writer would find, after the story, the writer would find the journal and then proceed to write the book based on those notes. But those notes would be incomplete. There would be no ending. Jekyll has made a deal with the devil, effectively, and he is, as Hyde, he is stalking the streets of London, stalking women, and it's an alternate history, effectively. A quote-unquote real Jekyll and Hyde is different to the quote-unquote fictional Jekyll and Hyde, purely by the virtue of this is it. In the 1800s, you're never going to get a direct translation of what is essentially a mysterious murderer that has just been caught. No one really knows. You don't know the truth. So why remain true to the book when that would effectively be impossible? I decided that early on that because it's such a fantastical thing in itself, I wanted to push it a bit further when it came to Jekyll and Hyde. So the best way to do that is to make it a form of substance abuse that causes the transformation, rather than it being a potion that Jekyll generated himself based on the technology afforded to him in the 1800s. Because let's face it, it ain't going to happen. But if it just gives him a bit of a kick, then it brings into that sort of more Doctor Who-y aspect. So I took inspiration because it's effectively a form of red eye he gets, and Doctor Who fans will know red eye is what drives the Ood insane. So Jekyll has taken red eye, which would normally make the Ood very, very angry, and becomes Hyde. It forms a whole new personality. Everything is just completely different, even his memory. And he becomes this crazed, deep, dark monster of a character, of a person, rather. And I just thought that'd be such a cathartic villain for the Frontier Doctor to take on, because he's in such a state that he could effectively go all out. So this is like a glimpse into just how terrifying the Doctor can be when left to his own devices, really. And we've just taken the Doctor, and he's just, as you just heard, he has just gone completely ape on this guy. He's gone completely ape shit, and he's just messed him right up, because he had no choice but to save the streets of London from this guy. He had to take things into his own hands, and he did the mind meld and bloody blew his brains out, effectively. In the way of us, in terms of circuitry, not gun.
Yeah. Motor functions and nerve systems severed.
Yes, exactly like that.
And
it was fun.
It is one of those things. It is one of those things where it's interesting to think about, like what makes up the mind as well. The loss of control of oneself, which is something that Jekyll goes into, and it's a nice allegory about some of these stories, like who, like, like, for example, the one I did with Dorian Gray says, what if you could remain beautiful forever like a portrait will never change? It's good metaphors in the same way here, that what is good and evil, or good and bad, what defines those, and can they be defined? And that's something that Jekyll talks about in your script. He talks to the Doctor about it, going, is it something that we are? Is it something that we can switch between? Because in a way, there are primitive elements to us. It's a really interesting way that you talk about with that that Jekyll was thinking of when using the red eye about, can someone be wholly good? Because at the end, Jekyll, you as in Frontier, doesn't look upon Jekyll as the innocent party. He's not the good guy, but he is the better self.
He's the better self, but he's not innocent.
Exactly, and that's what I like about it. It's a sort of almost like a bit of an allegory and another thought-provoking piece about the human mind, about the self. Going, no matter what, you cannot be unflawed. Even though Hyde might operate differently, Hyde wouldn't exist without Jekyll. So Jekyll is not the good one, but Hyde isn't the good one either. He's just destroyed himself both ways.
Yeah,
he's become a victim of his own making.
Still complicit.
Yeah, exactly.
He's still complicit in the actions of Hyde. It's deeply Jekyll and Hyde is such a deeply fascinating character in fiction in general.
Yeah.
To examine and do deep dives on. And it was great in that sense. And writing it was a lot of fun. I particularly enjoyed adding bits of references to the musical version. Because I really do like that version of the story.
Because I always think of... I always like looking at the old versions of the films from the 30s.
Yes.
There's an amazing transition scenes they did where they turned him in one shot into Hyde. Like Jekyll sits in his seat, it pans down to his hand, and his hand starts to grow hair out of it, and then it pans up to him, and he's now got teeth, strange teeth coming out, and it's interesting how each version's been adapted, because everyone looked at Hyde as a sort of animalistic character. So when Jekyll turned from a clean-shaven, I suppose you could call it a clean-shaven, very posh man, gentleman, into very much, they ended up making him look more like a primate.
Yeah.
They gave him hair.
Animalistic.
Yeah, exactly. They gave him sort of fuzzy hair that went all around his face.
Yeah.
All around his head, and he had teeth that were kind of poking out from across his lips, and that could, look like it could tear the flesh off your arms if you tried.
Yeah.
They made them look much more animalistic. And then there are others where, for example, I've always got a soft spot for Stephen Moffat's Jekyll, done with James Nesbitt. They just made him look younger. They gave him jet black eyes, like an animal, like a beast eyes. But then as the original person would get older, whenever Hyde would come out, he'd get younger with much more thicker black hair. And I prefer that one because he still has a human quality to him, but he maintains his youth because of the power he holds within him.
Yeah,
it's a very good series, that one. But I very much enjoyed your iteration of Jekyll and Hyde, and it's another one of those, because I always love stories that have a bit of a bittersweet or bad ending to them in some cases. I feel like too many people, I feel like too many stories have to be resolved perfectly sometimes,
Yeah.
Hooray, we've saved the day. No, life isn't like that. You compromise with what you've got.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. That's kind of how this one definitely ends that way, because you have to punish both personalities to stop one.
Yeah.
I will also add, because it's obviously out by now, so we're okay to talk about it. He's not seen, but the perpetrator behind the red eye is mentioned.
Yes.
And it was something it's only said in one line. But there's definitely a musical cue. I remember putting it in the edit. But yeah, that's it's the Trickster.
Yeah.
The Trickster's never appeared in prison.
No.
He's never appeared. There has been a sort of resurgence of the Trickster through fan content recently. So I've immediately gone, all right, I'm going to take a pause then. I don't want to because there was, obviously there was Series 5 of DW 2012.
Let's say the Man on Earth.
Yes, exactly. And then there was the Memories Are Forever from Fortuna Vega Studios, who do Torchwood 2000. They did one.
Yes.
Well. I think both of your trailers came out a day apart.
I remember the designs actually being shared not too far apart either. It was quite incredible, really, and it is entirely coincidental. It was entirely coincidental, I feel I should stress.
Yeah.
But no, character definitely had a popularity resurgence around that time.
But I've always wanted to see the Trickster face the Doctor properly. Obviously, we got that Sarah Jane episode, Wedding of River Song. I was about to say, the Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith. That was a really nice inkling to it, but obviously it's still set within the rules of the spin-off. I'd love to see it in a much more cosmic scale, but you never know what we might do with that. But it was a nice reference to more of the chaos. And there is,
and it's.
Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, it's nice to get a vibe of what the villains get up to outside of the Doctor's reach.
Yes, exactly. I sort of remind myself going back to the Trickster's brigade being referenced in Miracle Day, in Torchwood Miracle Day. It's referenced so minutely. It's in 1927, and they've got these snake pincers creatures that would burrow eggs into the brain of its host and change the way they act. And they were going to do it to the President of the United States at the time, which would then have changed history, which I find that to be a really interesting way. It doesn't have to be just the Trickster. It could just be their brigade. And how, just doing a small, tiny change like that affects decades of history. And that's what I really liked about the incorporation of the Trickster here with the Red Eye. He wasn't doing anything huge.
No.
He was just shifting things slightly, potentially to set the board in his favour.
Yeah.
Which, something I've never considered before. He could just make 100 agreements, and then you'd be you'd have to find 100 people,
Yeah.
That's a good story idea. We should pocket that.
It is. Okay.
Yes.
Rapid fire.
Indeed. On that note, thank you very much. Is there anything you wanted to mention at all? Are you happy with what we've talked about?
Again, just want to say everyone did a fantastic job. Fantastic job of the edit as well. I just couldn't be happier as to how it came out, and I'm much looking forward to working on more Frontier in the future.
Indeed, I think it goes without saying that we are working on a volume.
Yes, absolutely.
We've done a prologue and a nice little Halloween episode. We're now looking to do a volume.
Yes, and the first script has been written.
Ooh.
So there is that. And yeah, we'll see where we go from there.
Indeed. So thank you very much again, Dom, for your time.
No problemo.
And I shall return to myself and Daniel in the future.
Huzzah!
And welcome back to the podcast. And I'm here with Daniel Patton.
That's me.
Indeed.
And now we're going to do some comments reading.
Oh,
Sometimes I did the comments reading.
Yes, indeed. We'll be reading him for Henry Woodman Into the Storybook, and then, of course, the Fractured Timeline finale prequel that came out a couple of months ago, but sadly, Dan, you were away, so we are now able to do it now, aren't we?
Yes, indeed, sir.
We will start off with myself with episode 1 of Henry Woodman Into the Storybook. A comment here is from Michael Cox saying, "The world of imagination opens up so many possibilities for the writers, and this story from the late Harry Gosling is a great beginning to the latest adventures with Henry Woodman." Yeah, this was an episode that got written August/September last year. It was a particularly difficult one because it was quite literally the last thing he wrote before he died.
Yeah.
He
there's a lot of weight on this one.
Yeah, exactly. So it was one of those ones where for a while it felt we weren't sure if we should even make it. But we decided to in the end.
Yeah.
With his mother's blessing. And,
that's good.
Yeah, because she said that she wanted all of his projects to still be realised in some shape or form, which I believe in that regard, he was playing a fan doctor on for the Origin universe, I think, or the Hourglass universe, which they're still trying to push on to get finished, but obviously they're finding it particularly difficult themselves, trying to get it done after what's happened.
I think, yeah.
Right, moving on to the next comment on episode 1. We have a comment here from Jeevan John, which reads, "What a marvellous way to start off this amazing second volume. The story was written amazingly by Harry Gosling, and he did an amazing job with the writing with Henry's character as well as the other characters. Speaking of the other characters, Connor Chadwick as Willy Wonka was absolutely incredible, and he brought a very good charm to the character of Wonka, which I'm absolutely adored by. I also have to say I loved Connor's little rendition of Pure Imagination at the end of this episode, which was very sweet and lovely. Chelsea Lagan's portrayal of the toy maker was absolutely exquisite, and the twist at the end that she was puppeteering the whole thing was absolutely genius. Eli Langley, Connor J. Sumner, and Paul Pemberton did a fantastic job of voicing the Oompa Loompas, and I absolutely loved listening to them all and their little quirks that they had. Most of all, Lewis Warehouse was fantastic as ever as Henry Woodman, and I loved Henry's reaction to being transported into a world of fiction that is what Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. During the moment when the end theme came on, I did get very emotional. Henry is truly... During the moment when the end came on, I did feel very emotional. Harry Gosling was truly an amazing person that was gone too soon, but his legacy will always live on in his scripts and the audios that he has been in or worked on. I will always cherish the moments that we had talking to each other when we had the chance, and I will cherish the first episode of this volume in memory of him." Well, that's nice. That's nice. I will also add that the whole me singing Pure Imagination at the end, the horror I felt when the 15th Doctor sung that in Rogue.
That's true, yeah. This came out much later than, yeah.
Well, this first episode came out at the end of August, and those episodes were out in June, I think. So they were very close together, but we do plan stuff so far in advance, and we get things done a good few months before they're out. And this got finished around April, so we had no idea, but we were horrified.
Like, oh no,
indeed,
why?
No, why? Everyone's going to think we're copying, and the fact that it's got the toy maker in as well.
That's true.
Which Lewis came to us, or came to me at least, in May 2023 with the idea of having the toy maker.
Yeah.
So it was all just coincidence. It's all lined up that way.
Lots of coincidences, yeah. It's always Henry.
The problem is there's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can say that will make people believe me. People just go, "Oh,
on the schedule. Show them how long you had it in the schedule."
Yeah, that's the problem. The schedule is sacred. But anyway, moving on to episode 2 called Outlaw Sherwood Forest. We have a comment here from Yuan the Blue saying, the saga continues. Something tells me this will be far from the last story that he will have to deal with, which is correct for a 4-episode volume. We are halfway. There is more to come. We also have a comment from Michael Cox saying, as someone born and raised in Nottingham, the Tales of Robin Hood has been a big part of my life for many years, so it was interesting to hear it receive a fresh treatment. Henry and the Doctor continue to walk the path laid out for them by the Toymaker, but a reckoning will surely come in due course. And then we have, finally, a comment from Jeevan John saying, what an absolutely marvellous second story in this incredible volume. The story was absolutely thrilling with sensational writing from the truly amazing mind of Abby Louise. The characters were absolutely brilliant and were so true to the ones in the real story of Robin Hood. Nick Payne, Eli Langley, and Paul Pemberton were truly amazing with their portrayals of Will, Little John, and Friar Tuck, as they all captured the essences of those characters beautifully and brought them to life with their entertaining and amazing performances. Connor J. Sumner as Mr. Smith was excellent, and hearing him portray a character that was essentially helped by Robin Hood but getting punished for it was sad to hear, and Sumner captured the heartbreak of the character so beautifully well. Connor Chadwick as the Sheriff of Nottingham was truly spectacular, and it was lovely to hear him flip occasionally from having to play the character of the Sheriff back to the Doctor to reassure Henry about all of what was happening. Talking of interactions between Henry and the Doctor, the scene where the Doctor had to talk to a very heartbroken Henry into killing him as a character of the Sheriff made me choke up and bawl my eyes out, because it was essentially a question of whether you kill your best friend to save the day, and that just broke me. But last but certainly not least, Lewis Warehouse was amazing as Henry Woodman, and it was truly amazing to hear him in this story temporarily trying to take on the mantle of Robin Hood, but still stay on focus about getting out of what he's in and saving the Doctor before it's too late. Overall, this was such an amazing story, and it was written amazingly. The sound design as well as the overall editing sounded amazing, as done by the superb Connor Chadwick himself. I cannot wait for what is to come with this amazing volume, and for how Henry will react when he comes face to face with the Toymaker herself. Indeed. I always love these lengthy comments. It's always nice to read them, because I just know that in that case people have enjoyed them.
It gives credit to the full production of it as well.
Oh yeah, of course. That's always something. It gives everyone gets mentioned and gets their praise, which is always something I'm appreciative of, and everyone else is as well, because we all work very, very hard on them.
Indeed.
Moving on to episode 3 with Woman in Wonderland, we have Yuan the Blue saying Henry's journey continues, and the Cravat Cat was a very suitable role for him, I think. Excellent as always. Indeed, the Cravat Cat's a very long-running joke. And then we have a comment from Michael Cox saying, a cravat-wearing Cheshire Cat? It wasn't so long ago that the Cravat Doctor was compared to Bagpuss, as seen in the Prism 60th Minisode, Part 3. Is this a new story arc for the Cravat Doctor? But seriously, I do like the development of Henry's character. Lewis gives a great performance, mixing together the bemused reactions to the story into what he's been plunged into, and his growing determination to defeat the Toymaker. I do wonder if there's a story within the story, as it sounded as if Henry Woodman and Jenny Flint are now somehow together. Indeed. How does that work? That's a good question, Michael. Michael's paying attention to these details. I like this. He very much is. But of course, that does have its answers. It does have its answers indeed. Now, Daniel, you'll be reading the comments for episode 4, The Final Problem.
Indeed. Which is also coincidentally, I think, the first time we played Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson in about
2 years.
A year? 2 years? God.
Yeah, last year was the 60th year.
Yeah. Oh, God. So I got one comment from Yuan the Blue. I think that was a very clever way to end one game. Alas, Henry seems to have attracted the Toymaker's full attention. Looking forward to how this pans out.
Indeed, this episode, whilst the end of the overall volume, to an extent, or shall I say the storyline, did leave on a cliffhanger, and there will be a 5th and final episode out at New Year called Henry's Game. Because obviously the Doctor and Henry were playing a game, and the Doctor won his. But Henry is still trapped within the game itself. There is one more obstacle he must overcome before he is free.
Indeed, sir. Indeed.
Indeed. And that was the only comment, wasn't it?
It was you and the blue.
Oh, my.
Thank you, you and the blue.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going down to the Fractured Timeline Series 2 finale prequel.
Ooh.
We shot this during the production of the prequel itself. We had a few wee things to film there and there, so we picked up this prequel very quickly. But it's also showed off the new TARDIS interior that I'll be using for the finale.
Yes, indeed.
Which took me 2 days to render in Blender.
Oh, dear.
I will devise a new way of rendering by the time we get to the full finale. So we'll start with Jimbo Character Universe saying, amazing stuff, and I like the new TARDIS interior and exterior. Very cool.
Indeed.
Thank you.
I agree.
And now we have one from MMG Jr. I think that's a guy called Mikey.
Mm-hmm.
Good prequel. Like to see the next episode very soon when it comes out. Episode 3 lost to next of the Irish Doctor, and very soon of episode 3. Watch episode 3 very soon when it comes out. But good prequel, Daniel. Very, very good prequel. Very good.
Missing some commas in there, wasn't it?
I think there's a few comments missing, but I really appreciate it, Mikey. Thank you very much. And then I'm so sorry if I'm butchering this here name. I'm just trying to, I guess it's Akshay Trainer?
Akshay Trainer, yeah.
Akshay Trainer, 1960. And awesome. Another one from the Rainbow Hooves show? Is that Rainbow Hooves show?
Rainbow Hooves.
Awesome as well. And Doc Dimmy saying awesome as well.
Indeed.
We have Force Dalek saying this is really good, great quality. Thank you very much. We have Fourth Wall Productions saying really nicely put together.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. We have the dictator himself, Ruben Roper, saying holy crap. Very in character, Ruben. We have Film Storm Studios 8571 saying this is so awesome, makes me so hyped for the finale. We have Liam Seabolt 3597 saying beautiful, absolutely beautiful. We have Peter Dixon 7734 saying I rejoiced in the Lord. Someone just saying in response saying Starborn saying huh?
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
I'm glad he rejoiced.
But he would but he specifically rejoiced in the Lord. I'm assuming that you're the Lord? I don't know.
I don't know. Are we talking about Lord the Singer? Anyway, we also have Callum Trevitz saying can't wait.
Oh, good.
So thank you very much for commenting, and I had to crack on with the rest of the start finale.
We will get there.
Oh, God. Well, we got myself into it.
yeah, but we will get there, sir. In time, we will get there.
Indeed, sir. Indeed.
Oh, getting tired, sir. Getting tired. Well, it sounds like Daniel needs a nap. So I think it's time to listen to the ToverTon Exclusive.
Let's go.
That's probably my best segue I've ever done.
That probably is, yes.
And you're sure that's where they are, fool?
Yes, sir. No doubt about it.
These cavaliers be but jokers and layabouts, none of which have the backbone to sit upon.
Their hiding place is found. You will be paid greatly, fool. Throw the lads some coins. We will plan our attack. Come.
There you go. For your troubles.
Why am I such a liability? I cannot keep many secrets through fear of death. I must away to camp, warn them of the fate I have cursed upon them.
Brother, you do not need to warn us. We saw your foolishness firsthand.
Simon, my friend, you must understand.
No. You're a man without a loyal heart. Do you not believe in our king? The royal throne we fight for?
Of course I do. I always will. Long live the king!
You have sentenced us to death, Varn. This will not go unpunished.
Whatever my punishment, I deserve it.
Yes. Progress. Recording in progress.
I don't like it. Stop. Hello,
He's so
and-
cute now.
Hello, and welcome to Behind the Duvet for Scarlet Lust. I had to think what it was then. I am Abby Louise. I directed and wrote. I need to call Astra there. That's completely the wrong audio. So yeah, that's me, Abby Louise.
Non-who.
My first non-who.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce yourselves, gang? Anyone?
All right. Then. I am. It says Strux on my thing, but I play. Oh crap! What do I play?
Great start.
Brain's not working today.
No, my brain is not working.
Edmund.
Edmund, thank you very much. And Roundhead 1, I think it was.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Lagan, and I play Clara in Scarlet Lust.
I'm Brandon, and I play Varn.
I'm Grace, and I play Scarlet.
In Scarlet Lust.
And I'm Rory, aka Rasslin Productions, and I play Luca.
Yay. Bear with us all, because some of us have been at COB, some of us have been doing a script read for another audio, and some of us have COVID. So
one of us is old.
One of us is old. So this could be an interesting behind the debate.
I was going to mention, but I have a huge cold as well. I've been sneezing like 50 times today.
Nobody's well today.
Basically, we're all dead or dying.
Everybody is broken. So, Scarlet Lust.
Yes.
So, firstly, like Strax said, this was my first non-Who writing. It has nothing to do with Who whatsoever, whereas before Vastra did kind of have the Who context in it. Now, when I first wrote it, straight away, I was like, Brad, do you remember you done that RP accent that one time?
That one time. I was listening back to BB1 when I went on Spotify. I was like, Jesus, how many characters do I play? I forgot. Every 2 minutes, I'm like,
Brandon McCaffrey in the multiverse of Brandon.
At one point, I played 2 kids back to back.
This is when we didn't know anybody though. That was ages ago. I think that, but no. So straight away, I was like, I want Brandon to be the leading man, and then somebody else slipped in who also is Irish.
Hi.
I still love the fact that our 2 leads are not English. And I remember saying, Chelsea, do you want to audition for this role? And I gave her some of the bits, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'll have a go." And then she got it, and she was said to Brad, I was like, "Oh, are you gonna be in this vampire thing?" And Brad was like, "I am the vampire." That's it.
It's weird because we've had it like technically ready to record since November. So it's weird for it only to be getting out now. It's like, Jesus, we've had so much go on. It's like, Jesus, we got there. We got to our non-Who.
It's been one of those scripts that's been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And then I was determined to cast out for the other roles, non-TTers. Even people that haven't even worked with us before, like Chris Walker Thompson and Razalon Productions.
Hello.
Hello. And Jess as well. Because this was her first audio, so that Jess was new, and she played Sophia, which I personally think was brilliant casting. She was so good.
So good.
So if we start talking about if we just make our way through them, we go through it that way, because otherwise it's just going to be all over the shop. I feel like I need an asthma inhaler. Like I'm having to take a massive breath before each line. I got to record tomorrow, people. It could be interesting. So Scarlet Lust 1. So
Bridgerton with
Bridgerton?
vampires.
Yes.
That's literally part 1.
What did you think of the script when you first got it, Brad?
Oh Jesus, that's a question, isn't it? I really liked it.
I thought it was shite.
It was fucking awful.
No offense to anyone listening to spit swearing. No, it was something different than what we'd already had, and it allowed us to play more than having to stick to characters that we're used to. It's the first time we've really had original characters. Nothing that has been based off someone else, nothing that's connected to something else. It's purely original, and it was nice to just sort of create your own idea of things and work with that rather than going, oh, well, their voice normally sounds like this, so I need to make it like that. It's like, no, I can just play.
Yeah.
And having the group that we had, like when we were recording wise, this goes for all 3 episodes, but we obviously all sat there and went, okay, we're going to do a bit of a read, and then we'll do it here normally. But that's how we normally do it with this. It was like the cast just knew what they were doing, and we all did it in like one go nearly every single time.
Yeah.
Going like, this went really well, cracking.
It did feel like everybody but I think it kind of helped the fact that it was your own character. Like,
yeah,
like Razalon played Luca how he would have played Luca because that's his character. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just like, yeah. Bridgerton with vampires. I think the one thing I will say with this script is it's the speaking. It's a bit different, but I kind of think it helps kind of set the scene though, especially with the Clara and the Vaughn stuff. I think like this is one thing I will shout out to Chelsea for, is the character that goes through the most changes in this is Clara. Talking about like the young Clara, the young naive Clara from number 1.
Attention seeking
Clara. The first scene with you two, when you're at the table and you're saying, maybe if you didn't speak with your mouth full, like
yeah. Oh man, like see with that, I'm not gonna lie, Bridgerton helped. Because I was just sitting there, I was like, right, okay, I know it's not the same time frame or whatever have you, but I'm just gonna, like, this script gave me a lot to think about, because obviously my accent is this. I don't pronounce my T's or proper letters a lot. Me and Brandon don't. But, no, literally, it was just me watching that and trying to... Because I understood, like, in the past, it was just like, women married off to money, whatever, be fancy, be courteous, play the harpsichord and stuff. So I was trying to like doing a lot of studying with that whilst watching like Bridgerton, seeing how the women act and all that stuff. So like see even me like recording and stuff, I tried to like sit up proper and try to, be kind of snarky and stuff like that, especially in the first scene with me and Brandon, but it helped a lot with it being like, not proper speak anyway nowadays, but back then it made me think like, right, every word has a meaning.
Yeah.
Every single thing. So I have to like enunciate everything and be very ladylike.
It probably helps the fact that it was kind of Shakespearean-esque with the whole like being posh RP. It kind of probably helped with the non-RP speakers.
I'd just be wild funny if we did Scarlet Lust in our own accents.
Oh no, the funniest things were when Chelsea would mess up.
It's when I go like, how dare that's not what I meant.
No, it's just like, well, Vaughn, no, I fucked up, let me do that again. Oh geez, there is definitely going to be some outtake reel, I swear.
Pretty. Like
Not say pretty.
I don't like that word anymore. If I know for a fact you'll put it in new scripts for the crack, and I'm like,
pretty.
Mental note.
Why pretty?
Put pretty
I was
in
like,
future
I just had so much trouble saying that word and saying it right.
So have you heard number 1? Chelsea.
All of us?
Huh? Say again,
have you heard number 1?
Number 1.
Scarlet
Scarlet Lust 1.
Oh, aye.
Yeah.
Of course I have.
I will say this. When I didn't really think it through, the whole vampire thing, because doing vampires in audio is kind of gross.
I can imagine trying to find sound bites.
Well, like the scenes when Vastra, the scenes when Varn has like the cupboard full of humans,
Oh yeah.
and he like pulls the people out the cupboard and then just snacks on them. Like just the sounds of their like teeth.
It's like his
in.
equivalent of the fridge, you know, 3
It's like a
a.m.
Victorian
on
vending
Sunday,
machine.
Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Catch a Khaled by the toe. Let them have him.
Literally, like this, and like later on in episode 3, the scene when Clara attacks Luca, like the goriness, and there's like slurping noises, and there's like blood dripping noises, and I didn't really think about this. I was editing it, I was like, this is kind of gross. I put a warning at the top of all of them, contains gore and sexual references. Like, speaking of sexual references,
Sorry, I was going to say contains sexual references. A bit more than
number
that.
2. Well, number 2 has a warning at the front of it, which Grace done for us.
You're welcome.
Definitely need it on number 2.
The one scene that I loved in episode 2 for me myself wasn't the sex scene.
Oh.
Now Brad's not heard episode 2.
Any of it? I've not heard any of it yet.
Shame.
But episode 2, there's the bit when they're in the back of the police van.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Clara says, "Can we not escape?" And as she says that, they hang. You hear the drop, you hear the door open, and you hear the rope taut. And it's like, I you know when you just listen, Strax will know this. You know when you listen to an edit and you're like, I like that.
No, literally,
the way
I knew
that's
it
picked
was
up.
coming. It just gave me like a bit of shock as well. And I was like, ooh.
When I edit stuff, I don't know whether Raz is like this. You kind of visualize it as you're editing. So if that was on screen, like it would cut to black, and then like straight away it should be like drop, like, and
Yeah, there are like moments of dialogue that just stick with me when I edit, and like there was a audio I edited recently where I decided no music, just complete silence, and it was like this war zone, so you can just hear like an emphasis on the atmosphere. And like there are just moments like that just stick in my mind.
Clara pulling herself out the mud.
I swear, see, I've got so much of a light head doing that. Doing a lot.
Oh, you're having to do breathy acting.
She had to
Yes.
do
That's
breathy
fun
acting,
doing breathy acting, isn't it? Panting,
pulling herself out.
getting yourself.
I will say
lightheaded
this as
just
well. I
because
need
of
to bring
audio.
up Jed's music.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Because
Incredible.
oh my God, he got it on the
Amazing.
nose. Like every single one of his tracks just works so bloody well, and he done the intro music as well. And it's just so atmospheric, and there's like heartbeats, and it sounds like a little bit like Psycho at points, and it's so good.
Credit
So,
to him high.
Sex scene.
Yeah.
You know what the best bit is? We did that in one take, that sex scene.
Yes, we
And
did.
that is the scene that I expected all 3 of us to go, I can't do this. This is going to be so complicated. And no one broke.
No.
I will say this: if we'd done that sex scene in December, I don't think we could have done it. But I think
But on a Zoom, I think you'd have had problems.
Oh,
Because you can't see each other's faces, it sometimes helps.
If you'd seen the way Grace was walking the door today,
script read was bad enough.
Shut up, Brandon. Shut up.
The script read was bad enough.
That's between me and you, Brandon. No.
But yeah, I generally think because now, like, well, you 3, like Chelsea, Brad, and Grace are like old school TTers now, so they've been working on a few things like in different ways. Yeah, but you're not in the sex scene, Strax.
Get your own.
But I think because you have that level of confidence with each other now, I think that's the only reason why you managed to do that sex scene without giggling. Because I will say this now, even me and my Vastra, we have trouble doing those sort of scenes and not bursting out laughing. So I like salute you 3.
Love you both.
So, Strax, Edmund.
Yes, Edmund.
You're another person who basically auditioned through Zoom.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? I'd completely forgotten I had as well. I think it's one of those ones where I was like, oh God, I'm actually yes. I need to think of an accent, and I don't know where that one came from. But when I listened to it back, I didn't recognise myself.
He didn't think it was him. He completely forgot he was in it. So that worked out quite nicely. It worked out very nicely.
It's interesting doing a posh accent.
I do love the fact that when we done the initial script read, I said so posh, like it's Blackadder posh. It's like
Hello.
Ridiculous, like white wigs, powdered face. Like
Yeah. It's a bit different to doing my my usual 6'4" potato man.
It's a lot different from Strax.
Yes.
Yeah, the audio would have been a lot more different with Strax.
Could you imagine
Mr. Vaughn, sir.
Mr. Vaughn, sir, what are you doing here? I told you not to eat these people.
Why have you brought another boy?
No, it just didn't work.
I'm sorry, there was no balloon.
It was Thomas.
Thomas.
Yeah. It was,
I don't have a boat.
I don't even think why, because sometimes I try and think of. I don't know if anyone else does this when they're trying to get a voice, but I try and think of like either people or something I've watched to try and get a particular voice. And I don't even know what I was trying to.
But that's the whole like joy of us not having characters associated to those people, because it's much like Mr. B. It's very much like your character. I know I had to bring up Mr. B. I'm sorry.
If you've not listened, I do apologise. I'm the nicest man in the world. But
Go listen. I know.
Go listen to
as if
BBC.
by magic there'll be one of those little things up there now. Because I'll put it up there. I'll be like, go
Art
listen
of
to
editing.
before Vashta 3. All will be revealed.
Yes.
And then so yeah. Sorry, I've run out of breath.
That was a sentence. Actually, I'm going to, because I wouldn't say something quickly about it. I've said this before whenever I've done like stuff behind the duvets when we touched on jazz music and stuff, that certain music can set a scene perfectly, and if you haven't got that right bit of music, then it ain't going to sound right. And Jed's music, when I was listening to it, because I have ADHD, I hear certain sounds slightly differently, and I could hear that heartbeat, and it resonated properly, like in headphones. If you haven't listened to it with headphones, I suggest you do, because it's a completely different sound. It's a completely different sound than it is coming out of the
Literally,
speakers
if you listen to especially my edits, I'm not sure about the other ones, but if you listen with headphones, like there's this in episode 2 of Scarlet, when the door's getting knocked down in episode 2 by Chris Walker Thompson's character, it's in this ear. But it's not quite in this ear. It's kind of more in this ear and only a little bit in this ear. And you can hear them coming towards Varn and Thingy, because it crosses between the two. We love doing it.
It's fun doing that.
It just sets, like, all his music just sets each and every scene just it's just perfectly.
I'll say this though, I went against my own rule for this, and I've never done this before, because this is like a big no-no. Editing wise, I know I'm such a rebel. It's not. I don't think I've ever done this, and Strax will probably tell me off for it. I've done a scene with nothing.
Oh, Abigail.
Opening for two. It is literally just Barn and Clara, no background sound, nothing. It's dead silent, and that's purely because he says that line. Can you hear it? Can you hear the rush? And she's like, nothing. And it's literally dead silent in the background. And that's the first time I've ever done it. And I'm usually dead against it. And I was like, no, because I want to have that. I had an image, just once again, that whole trying to have a visual of them basically sat in chairs, like all these bodies, like all the Bannerworths, and like all just scattered dead around them. And I wanted to have that like dead atmosphere.
Yeah.
So I could have had like a ticking clock or something in the background, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna have. I love a ticking clock. But yeah, literally, it was dead.
I do like that idea, because it kind of sets that scene like apart from all the others. Like it's impactful. I like that, because I've never done that. I've never done it to
It
nothing.
felt really weird.
It's up to the listeners.
My finger was like hovering over atmospheres. Like,
don't press it.
But it kind of leaves it up to the listener to be able to hear what they might hear. So you might hear that slightly differently to like myself or Brandon or somebody else, and it leaves that little bit of sort of listener's interpretation.
It's like that eeriness just before a jump scare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So episode 3, I will say this: we had 3 people in episode 3 who we hadn't ever worked with before. Be that of Razalon, Jess, and Chris. I love the fact whenever I play. Right, Jess isn't here, but I'm gonna big that girl up so friggin' much.
Incredible.
Oh my god! Like, so I had a few people audition for Sophia, and they all sounded too old. Whereas Jess isn't far off the age of Chelsea, but she sounds a lot younger in audio form. And she's from Portsmouth, so of course she can do an RP accent. But oh my lord, like I think considering this was the first like proper full-on audio, oh my god, like I fangirled over that girl so hard. It was the chemistry, like straight away her and Chelsea, like they could have passed for mother and daughter like 100%, and there's Varn there just being like women.
Just the majority of my characters are just very motherly and caring, but I feel like even like see whenever we first met Jess on the Zoom, I was like, oh hello, it's so lovely to meet you, because I know you were just like, I found her, I find Sophia. I'm like, oh, let me hear it, and I was like,
straight away. It was
like,
that
so
line.
lovely to meet
The
you,
audition line.
daughter.
The audition line she had was the you monster, go before I send the huntsman on you. And as soon as I played it to her, I was like, yes.
How I came into your company in the first
place.
I was like, oh my god. I was like, yes. This has to be her.
It's
But oh,
perfect.
she's lovely. So she needs to give herself more credit. She was honestly unbelievable.
It was really good, like really good casting. And Chris Walker Thompson speaks for himself, really. Like that man's voice could like
for himself, yes,
turn
and talk of
the most
sexual
straightest man.
exploits
Yeah.
in the middle of his confession.
And this is another one, like chemistry wise, like I could not chemistry in that way, but like you and Chris when you were working together, Brad, it was so magical. Like not in a weird way, but like
No, it
it's like games were in the same room, you know that.
Yeah.
Work with each other, it like bounced across really well.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. My brain's all mushy. Leave me alone.
You're telling me.
I have COVID.
I've been to the con. It basically feels like the same thing, I think.
It was like, see the read through when we first got everybody together and everything. I remember sitting down, I was like looking through the script and whatever, talking away. But whenever it was the scene with me and Brandon, I tried my best to like look up the screen and look at him. And I was just like, man, this is so good. I was just like, it was pure, like really good. Like, you know, just properly bouncing off each other. That was great. Oh, it was brilliant. Oh, I love it. I love the speaking of like dynamics between Raz and Jess again. Like they'd never met.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah.
I was like,
Razalon wasn't even at the script read.
Yeah, I can't remember why I wasn't. I wish I was.
You were at a wedding.
Oh yeah, that was the wedding I went to.
Yeah. And so the first time you worked with Jess was the recording.
Yeah.
And you
no pressure.
Like
No
the
pressure at all, then.
innocence. It was the
That was what it
innocence of
was.
everything.
And you listen to the music as well. Jed done this track that was like Lovers or something it was called, and it was so different to all the rest of the like haunted heartbeaty music.
Very
It was all like
light.
light and like, oh, aren't they sweet? It was like that. Considering what they did in the graveyard, I don't think they're sweet at all, but I will say I have certain lines in this that I love, and one of them is Jess saying, "You did not complain when we were in motions."
You know what you did to her.
You know, I can smell your lust. And my other favourite line is Varn's in Free. Free's probably got my favouriteest lines in it, actually. Is the ovaries line. Do your ovaries crave so?
Oh, Jesus.
I
And then
said
she
this.
pushed me in the volcano. What a bitch.
I said this to Chelsea as well. This final scene of Luca with Raz, Jess, and Chelsea in it has probably been my favourite scene to edit. I remember you get these moments, and I know that Brad's had these moments as a director where you completely forget that you're supposed to be directed and you have to push stop recording.
It's more because you've got your headphones in and you suddenly go, I'm not listening to an
I'm
audio
not listening
right
to
now.
an
I'm
audio drama,
directing
yeah.
one." Sorry, I forgot. I started listening.
100%. That's what this scene done. I basically was listening to the audio drama, and it was that scene where she's like sat, she's like holding Luca in the chair, and she's like, watch the flames dance in the fire. That scene, and I could see it in my head, especially because you'd never recorded live, had you, Raz?
No, this is my first experience doing that. I mean, even for like my own audios, I mean, I do, typically, send your lines in for email and stuff like that. And yeah, this was my first time recording live or being a part of a production like this even. And it was really fun, like
It
really
feels so weird though, doesn't it?
Praise the Lord for the Zencaster.
Because I remember when we done the practice, I remember being like, struggle, Razalon, she's holding you down, struggle. Can't do that.
I think that was when I was just
do that.
before that recorded, I decided I was like, right, I'm standing up for this, lads. Because I wanted to get like, that breathing and everything to make it pure, like I was actually doing something. So I was sitting there like bouncing like that, and I was like standing up, and I was like, right, just trying to sound more struggly than usual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember shouting at Razalon, being like, struggle, and he was like, and I remember in the practice, because we do a practice before we record, and I know what it's like. We've done like sword fights and stuff like that.
It does some strange things.
Me and mine and Strax's first audio, we called for events. Like it's the stupidest things you wouldn't think. And
yeah, having to play scared of an imaginary
Yeah.
weeping
I
angel.
remember that first time literally being like, guys, you better hot an event, wouldn't you be? You're trying to get there fast. You two going, yeah. What?
You do feel like an idiot when you first start doing it, but now a lot of us do it automatically. But
If
obviously,
anyone walks past you, you feel even more of an idiot.
Oh,
What the hell are you
trust.
doing? Go away while I'm recording.
Yeah.
I
Because
must
obviously
say,
this was Razalon's
Yeah.
first time doing that, and I must admit, like during the read through, you could tell you were a little bit apprehensive.
Oh, yeah,
As
I
I
was-
pushed record.
I was very anxious when we were doing the practice runs. You're right, but as soon as like the record button hit, I was right into it because even like with the struggle. I mean, I've acted struggle before in person, but doing it on audio was a different tale. Especially in this kind of live setting, because working with working with Chris Walker Thompson, who is a voice actor I look up to because he's brilliant. I was watching him when I was in secondary school. So working with him was an honor. Really, it was brilliant. But it was really fun. Getting brutally murdered and everything. So yeah, it was a really unique experience, and I think once the recording started, I got properly into it, especially getting brutally murdered.
Well, you said Chelsea was there to lend the hand as well. Like I know she turns into Molly. Like she's like, come here, Pants. Like, let me show you how it's done. Like
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
It was all very accommodating, and the direction was all very helpful, and yeah, it was all brilliant to work with, and yeah.
I say it's definitely
I think
been one of
that's
my
what
favorite
helps.
scenes.
It's what helps a lot is whenever you have someone to bounce off, and I was just like, lad, you'll feel like a tit when you do this, right? But just follow my breath. Just my breath. When I get softer breathing, then you go, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no,
It's
you
that
did
weird
amazing.
thing, isn't it? It's like
You did
weird
amazing.
scenes where like I'd whisper in your ear and you suddenly get really close to the microphone as if you're actually doing it to someone.
I know I was like this half the time. I was like, oh God. I was like,
Watch the flames dance.
Watch the flames burn as they dance. I was like, geez, I'm getting
I say, but
Michael's-
that was another gruesome one. And I've got like sounds of you slurping, and there's blood, and then Jess runs in, and oh my God, like I can feel her pain. That scene is, I love it. I love it.
It's a bit as well that I know the fact that you will have listened to about 4 or 5, maybe 6 different versions of slurping sounds to find the right type of slurping.
I've sat there and heard all the slurping sounds. Yeah,
it sounds weird unless you editors know what you're talking about.
You, me, and Raz are like slurping sounds. So slurp number 506.
Pains of an editor.
Sound right.
Yes.
No, that's a different kind of. That's slurping a cup of tea. That's not going to work.
Volcanoes. Speaking of sounds. This is a thing, because there's so for the finals after Chelsea's done her marvelous monologue once again. She's the monologue queen in this. There's lots of spotlight moments for Clara. But there was a track specifically for the last scene, so you can just about hear the volcano in it as well. But it's all about the music in that scene, and I will play this for you in a minute if you want to hear it. But the panic, and I've got like you can hear the sound of Vaughn's feet being dragged along the gravel, like as he's being pulled towards the volcano. And I hasten to add that this is all based on a penny dreadful. The Clee's in the name. It's dreadful. Only in Victorian London would you think, let's just put them by a volcano. So that's the only reason why I had to put a volcano in it, is because it's in the penny dreadful. I wouldn't have killed them in a volcano myself, but that's what the writer decided to put in there. So
they were a common occurrence back then.
A common occurrence, if in doubt, volcanoes. But this audio was definitely an experience, and I'm looking forward to doing the next Penny Dreadful, but that won't be out for ages. But yeah, it was nice to have a different cast and different company to work with, and to get more people in the like TT bubble and get to experience live recordings, because that's one thing that makes us
a bit different.
unique.
We've been doing for the last few months.
Yeah. It's not Doctor Who related. It's
No.
nice.
Check.
Yeah, she says.
It is nice.
So thank you for watching Behind the Duvet. I hope you enjoy the audio, and hopefully you listen to the audio before you listen to this, because if you haven't, we've spoiled the whole thing. So well done. So thank you for joining me. Well, in all fairness, you're going to listen to Behind the Duvet after, aren't you? That's how this works. Come on.
You should do. If not,
You should do.
stop.
Do
When it's too late
the
now.
other way around.
Yeah. You know what I mean.
So thank you for joining us, and goodbye.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast, and I'm still here with Mr. Daniel Patton. Hello, sir.
I have not left yet.
No. No. But yes, that was the ToverTon exclusive for Scarlet Lust. That is, at the moment, actually, TT Productions are releasing something for Halloween. The final part will be out, well, tonight, as of when we're recording it, will already be out now in a full trilogy. It is called Jane the Ripper, and it's basically a story of what if Jane, well, the Ripper wasn't Jack the Ripper, but it was Jane. It was a woman. There are some theories out there that Jack the Ripper wasn't a man, and this is something that TT Productions have lent into with this particular story, with the exploration of that. And I think that's been a very interesting story. It stars Rebecca Hodge, stars Joe Baker, stars Chelsea Lagan, David Bingham. There's a lot of people who we've recently worked with, actually, as well. Obviously,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, obviously Joe Baker is Hazel Anderson for the Young Doctor Adventures. Abby Louise plays Jenny Flint. Chelsea Lagan has been Julia Breslin and plays Susan. And of course I mentioned David Bingham because he's recently appeared in the next Alacrity Doctor volume. In fact, the first one, which is coming out next month. Shall we have a listen to the trailer?
Absolutely, sir.
Overton Audios presents
Get down, men! They're coming! What is your purpose here?
To help?
By whose authority?
My own. Dalek Production Factory on Dark Heart. Since when?
The Federation War.
Do you really want to end this war with more death?
They started this.
Looks a bit rough around the edges.
That's what happens when there's a war. Why do you have these details?
I needed to cover it up.
Cover what up?
Looks like we're all going down together, boys.
Guys, run!
Who are you two?
Nobody of your concern.
Don't bother lying.
Doctor Who, The Alacrity Doctor Adventures, Volume 1, The Doctor of War. Starting the 9th of November 2024 at 12 p.m. What an amazing trailer.
Indeed.
Did you enjoy it?
I really did. I felt, I actually did listen to the trailer myself on the Google Drive.
Oh, yes, indeed.
I'm very excited for Matt's first full volume because Alacrity is obviously like one of the biggest things to come out of the 60th year.
Yes.
For Overton in prison. So to finally delve deep into their era is very, very exciting.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. This is very much like how we felt with the Frontier prologue. It's very much the next era, sort of starting in a way. Not in a way. It is. It's very much something where us old men are being made superfluous. We're now being replaced slowly.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
Irish is going towards the exit at the moment, and
as is Cravat. Yeah,
as is Cravat, and it is sort of weird because we are introducing the next wave of doctors as we're sort of out ourselves.
Oh yeah. And of course, we've got one more volume. For example, we've got one more volume of the Northern Doctor still to come out next year, and that's Nathan's final volume. Obviously, he's already left anyway, but this one at the moment is currently his final volume for his Doctor. Like in terms of what else he'll be making, he treated 2023 as his retirement year because that would make it a full 15 years for him playing the role. Yeah. Obviously, we're not getting the next one out until next year, so as a result, it technically means that he was around for 17, but technically he cut off playing the character in the role in 2023, so he still made it for 15. But yes, indeed. So I suppose there's nothing more than to say then thank you for listening to this month's podcast. And
absolutely,
of course,
it's good to be. Yes, I was just saying it's good to be finally back in the podcast properly as well.
Indeed. And of course, thank you to our Patreons, Anya Patton, Chelsea Lagan, and Matt Tyrell. And I suppose we'll see you next month. Next month, we'll be talking about the Alacrity volume, has just been teased now. And
yes, indeed, sir.
And we'll be talking about the releases for next year. That's quite exciting.
2025 release schedule. Ooh. Maybe all blessed.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for listening, everyone, and farewell.
Take care, everyone. See you next month.